Hey everybody, hi, it's Becky from Power Tools with Thread. You guys ready to get started on the Nativity table runner? I am. Today I am going to take you through prepping your fabric and getting the design, downloading it from Designs by Juju, and how to get it to your machine. This is a real beginner series where even beginners can make very, very cool table runners. It's a very straightforward pattern and it's pretty easy to follow. When you get your design, I recommend that you either use some alpha biddies. Like I have alpha biddies that I have. These are alpha biddies. They're little plastic ABCs, and these are very common with quilters. And I kind of do this like a quilt. So I have all of my separate sections, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and then I can mark what I'm making. I would recommend also, you need to decide whether you're going to make the 6x10 or the 5x7. You might want to take a piece of paper and just cover whichever part you're not going to be using so you don't accidentally cut the wrong size on your design. You're going to want to take some SF 101, Shape Flex 101, and adhere that to the back of all of your background pieces. It's not necessarily important that you put it on the back of your applique pieces. I have mine on a bolt. I buy it by the bolt. It's a Pellon product. It looks like this, Shape Flex 101. I will put a link to it below. A lot of times Joann's will put all their Pellon products on sale half price, and that's a real good time to pick this kind of thing up. I make so many of these things, I just buy it by the bolt. The no-show poly mesh I am using, there's actually a link to it in my Amazon store, and it's Bro Thread. I just grabbed it off of Amazon, and I've got some pieces pre-cut already for my bigger hoop for my multi-needle. I will be doing some of these pieces in the single needle for my single needle viewers, and then these border blocks, I'm doing them in the multi-needle. It's just easier just to let it run there. But they're very, very simple. The process, if you have a single needle machine, the process is exactly the same. Just hoop your stabilizer, and the design is going to stitch out your placement lines. You'll put your batting down, you'll do the tack down, you'll put your fabric down, it'll tack that down, and then it'll stitch the two straight line motif stitches, and then your stars. So the stitching is identical even though the machines are going to be different. I use Embrilliance embroidery software, and in Embrilliance I go in and I'm going to color sort the design. I'm going to edit the design just a little bit so that it color sorts properly, and then move my banner pieces apart just to keep them separated in the hoop on the multi-needle. You don't have to have Embrilliance, although I think you will find that when you get Embrilliance, your life is a lot easier. It allows you to really take a look at the designs, and you know, if you need to flip them, merge them. The other day, a friend of mine, she texted me and she said, I need these to go vertically, these two designs. She was stitching a Designs by Juju design, and the way the design came on her screen, and she could see it on her computer, they were horizontal, and her machine would not even allow her to import the design. Even though it would fit, it just needed to be rotated 90 degrees. So it is all machine dependent when it comes to all that. But it is such a nice thing to have Embrilliance embroidery software. It's very easy, very simple to use, and I go through it step by step and show you how to use it. And yeah, that's kind of it. So you don't have to have Embrilliance. You certainly can just download the design and send it to your machine the way I show coming up in the video, and you're off and running, and you can go and do that. So this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to turn out just gorgeous. I'm so pleased with the stitch out so far. I think we're ready to go to the computer and get started. All right. Once you've purchased the table runner files from Designs by Juju, you can come back to the page and look at My Orders up here in the upper right hand corner, or you might have gotten an email that has got a link to your orders. I ordered it when I got a monogram as well. Now, on this page, you can download all. I don't like to use this button because I want to download each individual file to a certain place. And if I download them all at one time, then I'll forget to do one or the other. So I'm just going to do this one right now. I'm going to click download. And it wants to know what format. And so I'm going to choose PES for my brother machine. You can do all formats, but you really don't have to. That's really downloading more than you absolutely need. So it will download right here into your downloads file. And you can open the file, but don't do that because if you open it from here, you can't use the files yet. But if I click the folder right here, I'm going to open up my downloads folder, or you can get to your downloads folder by clicking on this yellow folder right down here. And there is the table runner right there. I'm going to expand this window. I'm going to come up here to view, and I'm going to go to extra large icons so you can see it a little bit better. And you can see it's got a zipper tab on it. If a file is zipped, the files inside of that folder cannot be used in their current state. Think of it like a space bag where you suck all of the air out of it and you've got a sweater in there or a coat and it's all sucked up real tight. You can't use it like that. You have to get everything extracted out of the bag and shaken out, and that way you can use it again. Well, the same concept is what a zip file is like. Everything in here is compressed, and we need to get it extracted so that they are usable files. So I'm going to highlight it. If I click off of it, it's not blue. I'm going to click on it one time, right click, and right here in the menu, it says Extract All. And when you do that, it wants you to select a destination and extract files. Right now, if I click down here on the Extract button, it's going to go and download into my Downloads folder. There's C, Users, Gram, Downloads. That's not where I want my files. So I'm going to click Browse, and I'm going to go to, in my Documents folder, I have another folder called Embroidery, and inside of that Embroidery folder is where I keep all of my embroidery designs. And I file them like a card catalog by subject. So here's Christmas, and I want to create a folder just for the Nativity Table Runner. So I'm going to click on New Folder, and I'm going to type Nativity Table Runner dash DBJJ so I know where it came from, and hit enter. So now I've created that folder. I'm going to double click it and choose select folder, and now it's going to go into Documents, Embroidery, Christmas, Nativity Table Runner. That's perfect. I'm going to click extract, and now all of the files that are in there are in that particular folder, so I know where to find everything. I'm going to go back to my embroidery folder over here in the quick access menu. If you cannot see this right here, up on the view tab up top, there is a button that says navigation pane. Make sure that that is checked. I just unchecked it and it went away, so I'm going to click on navigation pane and check it again, and there it is. And this is where I drag a lot of the folders that I get to all of the time. So here is my embroidery folder, and I'm going to go to Christmas. So once you're in your Christmas folder, the easiest way to find whatever you need, I like to click on Type, and that way I have my file folders up first, and then it'll go into other kinds of files. It's in an alphabetical order based on file type. So I'm gonna touch it again. So now everything, my folders are in alphabetical order, and I'm going to go down to Nativity Table Runner DBJJ. There are all of my files. Here are your color charts. Here is the PDF file with your instructions. Here's some thumbnails, and there is a copyright. Inside of here, I'm going to double click this folder. And I want you to notice that there are two different sizes of files. In here you have 5x7s and you have 6x10. You need to figure out what size you're going to make. And then to keep yourself organized, what I recommend you do is anywhere in the white part of your screen, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go New, and then I'm going to go Folder. Now, I am not going to make the 5x7. I'm going to make the 6x10. So I'm just going to type in the title of the folder, I'm going to type 5x7 files and hit enter. And then every one of these that ends in 5x7, let me click off the folder. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to click every one of these that is a 5x7. Just like this, and then I'm going to let go of the control key, and I'm going to click on one of them and drag that into the 5x7 folder, and they'll all move. Now I don't have to worry about grabbing the wrong file and stitching it out when I don't need to. So I have everything here that I need in order to be able to make the 6x10 table runner. If you want to see, now I can see what these are. Let me go to large icons. I can see what these are because I have a utility from Embrilliance called Thumbnailer on my system. And this is wonderful. It allows me to see what it is that I'm going to be stitching based on an image, like looking at a picture on the computer, as opposed to just having it look like a file like this and the title and hope that I get it right. So this is great. I have everything that I need. There are several ways you can get these files to your embroidery machine. The most common way is to put a USB stick into your computer, and I'm going to scroll down here on this access panel, and there's my USB stick right there. I'm going to highlight the first one and click it once. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to highlight the last one. When you hold down the Control key, you individually select files. When you hold down the Shift key and you click the first one and the last one, you'll select everything in between those two. It's just an easy way to do that. I'm going to just click on one time, and I'm going to drag them. See, it has the number 8 there, and it says copy to USB. I'm going to let go. And that's it. Now they are on the USB, and they are ready to go to my embroidery machine. If you have a Brother Luminaire or a Baby Lock Solaris, you can go into Embrilliance. Let me make a new file, and you can individually, let me make this smaller by clicking on this little box up here. You can drag one of the designs into Embrilliance. Let me minimize this so you can see. You don't have to save it. You don't have to do anything. You can go Utility, right here, Send to Solaris XP1. This also works on the XP2 or the XP1 that has been upgraded to the XP2. You need to have your machine turned on and have allowed it to go through its first initial sequencing where you touch the OK button and the arm moves back and forth. If you have a Brother or a Baby Lock that has wireless capability, you can also use the Brother Design Database Transfer. From here, one of the things I like to do with this is, rather than have to look everywhere by clicking on these little plus signs to find, like I would have to go libraries and then documents and then embroidery and then Christmas. One of the things I have done to make my life a lot easier, let me minimize this, is anywhere on your desktop, on the main desktop. You don't have any applications open or anything. On the main desktop, right click and go New and Folder and create a new folder. And I created a folder called EMB Designs. These are my embroidery designs in here. These designs are designs that I'm going to send to my machines using the Design Database Transfer Program from Brother. So if I wanted to send those designs over to my machine, what I'll do before I get started is I'll open up the folder where I have all the designs I want. Let me move this over here. So here's my EMB Designs folder on my desktop, and here it is in my Table Runner folder. I'm going to highlight the first one, hold down the Shift key, highlight the last one, and then drag them all into EMB Designs. And they have moved. So if you only want to copy them and not move them, while they're all highlighted, I'm going to right click and copy and come back over here and right click and paste and put a copy of them back over here. There we go. Okay, now when I open up the Design Database Transfer, let me get in here and collapse all of this. I have EMB Designs because this is my desktop up here, and it sees everything that's on the desktop. I know all of my designs are right here in this folder. It just makes life so much easier. So I want to send them over to my multi-needle. I'm going to drop down to Spanky. Once you have them in here, you can click on one, hold down your Control key. The Shift key doesn't work in this little utility. And then you can hit the arrow, add to writing list, and they all show up. And they're all still highlighted. And I'm just going to click the arrow with the sewing machine. And it's going to send them all over to my multi-needle at one time. All done. So that's a couple of different ways to manage your files, and now you are ready to get to stitching out your design. I'm about to do the border blocks, and I want to work smarter, not harder when I do this. So I am in Embrilliance, and I am going to open up the Nativity Table Runner folder. Here's the top and bottom border blocks. And here are the end border blocks. So I'm going to do the top and bottom border blocks now in the 6x10. And I'm just going to drag and drop them into the Embrilliance field. And the hoop that I have right here, if I go up to Preferences, this little yellow icon at the top is the Preferences. I've got under the PES, you would choose your embroidery machine format type. And then I'm using the 360 by 200 millimeter hoop, and that is the largest one for the multi-needle. That's it right there. So I'm just going to tell it okay. And you can see that they came in vertically. I don't want them to stitch vertically. And if you look down here in the bottom right corner, you can see that there's a yellow, which means they're not going to fit. You're going to have a problem with that because this is 7 7/8. But this design is 8 inches wide. So I'm going to come up here to the Objects panel. I'm going to click the entire thing. There's a plus sign. You can open that up, but I don't want to do that right now. I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to come over here to my directional arrows, and I'm just going to click one of them 90 degrees. And that flips the entire design 90 degrees, so now I know it's going to fit in the hoop. I'm going to click off of it right now and deselect it. And then I'm going to come over here in the Objects panel and click on the plus sign and open it up. And if you click on each individual object, you can see what everything is here. This is a batting placement line. That is a batting tack down line. That is a fabric tack down line. This is a motif stitch. And here are your stars. And then it does it again in the next one. Batting placement, batting tack down, fabric tack down, straight line motif stitch, and your stars. So there are 10 individual different steps to create this, but it's actually just a repeat one after the other. So what I want to do is I'm going to want to color sort, but I need to make sure that each individual step has its own color and that is duplicated in both designs. So for instance, Brother Embroidery Carmine is here for number 1 and it's here for number 6. So that's fine. And where I'm getting that, here is 1-1 and here is 1-6. But here we have Brother Embroidery Khaki, which is the tack down line for the batting. And that's the way it is down here in number 7 as well. But there's also a khaki on number 4. That's not what we want. So I want to change this one. I'm going to click on the khaki chip and the thread dialog box pops up. And instead of khaki, I'm just going to choose a different color. I'm going to choose the deep gold and tell it okay. So that means that was the straight line motif stitch for this one. So on the straight line motif stitch for this one, I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to call it the deep gold and tell it okay. Now we have a bit of a problem here. I have not defined. I need to define this one. And so I'm just going to click on the chip and I'm going to choose, actually it's going to be a gold metallic. Let's see what we got. Harvest gold, that's fine. That's not repeated anywhere else. I'm going to tell it okay. And then here in the not defined, I'm going to type in gold again. And I'm going to choose the harvest gold and tell it okay. So what we have here now is an individual different color. There's the carmine for the batting placement line. Here's the khaki for the batting tack down line. Here's sky blue for the fabric tack down, sky blue, fabric tack down, deep gold for the motif, deep gold for the motif, and harvest gold for the stars and harvest gold for the stars. So this is perfect. Now, what I want to do is be able to stitch these without having to tape up the sides of the fabric or the batting. And so I'm going to move them apart. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to highlight the first one and hold down my shift key and highlight number 5, and that's going to select everything in between. And I'm just going to move this way out here like this. I just want to make sure I have at least ½ inch between the top edge of this design and the center of the hoop so that I can butt the edges of the fabric and the fabric and whatnot together in the center and not have them stitch over each other. So I'm going to click this one, which is the first stitch in the second design, and this one, hold down the shift key and select them all, and then I'm going to move this way up here. There, that looks pretty good. Okay, now that I've got them apart, I want to color sort these. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select the top line so that everything underneath it is selected as well. I'm going to go to Utility and Color Sort. Remember, we've got 10. And it's going to color sort them, and it has reduced the color changes by 5. So instead of clicking Save It, I'm going to click New View, and it's going to give me a new tab. Now this is only 5 stitches, and it is the batting placement, batting tack down, fabric tack down, motif stitching, and stars. And that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So now I'm going to say File, Save Stitch File As. I'm going to call it Side Border Blocks Wide CS for color sorted. I'm going to make sure it is in the PES file format for my machine. If you're doing this and you have a different machine type, you would click the down arrow and you would Like if you have a Janome, you'd save it as a Jeff. It will work just fine. But I have PES. I'm going to click Save. Okay. And now I'm going to come over here to my Design Database Transfer. And I want to see, you don't see it here. I need to refresh this. And the way I do that is just, I can click a separate folder and then come back to EMB Designs again. And there it is, side border blocks, wide color sorted. That's exactly what I want. I'm going to make sure Spanky is highlighted and this is selected. And I'm just going to hit the machine and transfer it. All done.
Today I'm working on the border blocks for the sides and the ends. So I have labeled my parts. Top and bottom border blocks are A, and then side border is B. Angel blocks are C. Joy to the World blocks are D. Mary block is E. Major block is F. And the Joseph block is G. And then I went through, and as I cut all of my batting, I put the alphabetties on them to keep them straight for what's what. You can also put everything in little baggies. You could do that too, just like a Kimberbell project. But today is going to be mostly border blocks today. So I'm going to do it in the multi-needle because it's straight embroidery. And I just need to put some no-show poly mesh in the hoop. And before you cut your fabric for your background pieces, you're going to want to adhere some Shape Flex 101, Pellon SF 101 to the back of all of your background pieces for the borders and all of your blocks. You don't need SF 101 for the applique pieces, but I recommend that you do it in all of your background pieces just to prevent any kind of puckering. You will not notice any kind of weight or added bulk in your table runner at all. I also just cut 6 pieces of no-show poly mesh that will go in my embroidery hoop. So that's 5 hoopings for the border blocks and 1 hooping for each side border block. I'm over here at the machine and I have no-show poly mesh in the hoop. And I'm going to be using spool number 2 right there, that light cream color. And I'm going to be using kind of a dark gray right there, silvery gray on number 9. And over here on number 10, I have a spool of King Star gold metallic thread. Those are the 3 spools I'm going to use to make this design. First thing I want to do is to bring it up. I'm going to hit the wireless button. This is the Brother PR 1055 Entrepreneur Pro. It's a 10 needle. And here is my design right here that I sent over wirelessly. It says it's too large and it's going to turn it, and that's fine. All I have to do now is hit set. I don't need to do anything with this at all. Don't need to change the size, don't need to rotate it at all. It's just fine the way it is, so I'm going to hit edit end. And now I need to tell it what spool numbers to use. I'm going to touch the 3 spools of thread right here. And what you have here is, this is the number of color changes that are going to occur. Remember, we went from 10 down to 5. And these are the spool numbers that I have got available to use. I have colors on all of the spools, but I haven't told the machine what colors are on there, and I don't really have to. That's not that big of a deal right now. I have anchored 5 on black and 6 on white. I just leave that there all the time. So right here you get a little preview of what it is you're about to stitch, and right here you can tell you're on number 1 of 5. So number 1, I want to use spool number 2, which is that tan right there. I'm going to hit 2. And you see the 1 change to a 2. It doesn't care what color of thread is on the spool. The machine could care less. It just knows it's going to use needle number 2, thread color number 2 for the very first stitch. Now this seems a little bit backwards, but I do want the machine to stop after it stitches the first stitch, which is the batting placement line, but you don't tell it to stop and put the hand after number 1 it kind of reads backwards, and so I'm going to go to stitch number 2, and before it stitches number 2 I want it to stop. So I'm going to put up the hand and tell it to stop, and then it will stitch number 2. And number 2 I still want to be spool number 2, so I'm going to leave that as is. I don't need to change it. Number 3 is the fabric tack down line. Before it does that I want it to stop, so I'm going to put the hand up, and then it will stitch that, and I want that stitched off of spool number 2 as well. Number 4 is the straight line stitching. That is spool number 9. I don't care, it doesn't need to stop before that. And the 5th one is the stars, and that is spool number 10. And I'm going to tell it okay. That's how easy it is to assign thread colors in a design once you know what's going to stitch when. And that's kind of the beauty of having Embrilliance as well, is you can get into the design before you send it to the machine and really study it and figure out what it's going to do. So I'm going to touch embroidery, and I'm finished. I don't need to do anything. It's going to take 16 minutes to stitch out. I'm going to hit the lock button and go. That's my batting placement line, so I'm going to take my batting piece and I'm going to make sure it covers the placement line by about a ½ inch on all 4 sides. I'm not going to use any tape or anything. It shouldn't go anywhere. I'm going to measure it out here above side to side, and then measure it here top to bottom, and here top to bottom, and make sure it is on there. That looks good. Pretty straight. All right. If you're not comfortable with that, you can certainly take a piece of paper tape and tape it down on either end. So now I'm about to show you how to use this cool little gadget called a TrimmerByGeorge. If you don't have a TrimmerByGeorge, now is when you would remove the hoop and trim away all the excess batting around the outside of the tack down line. But I don't have to do that because I have that cool trimmer. I will link to it below. You guys are going to see this and you're going to love it. If you have to remove your hoop when you do this, and especially on a multi-needle, because it doesn't matter which way the hoop goes in, you might want to take a magic marker and put an F on your stabilizer or right front somewhere in here on the stabilizer so you don't accidentally put it in backwards. So now I'm just going to take the fabric and put it over the batting. Make sure to cover it on all 4 sides about an equal amount. You just don't want to see any of the batting. And once you get that on there, you're good to go. And from here, it's going to tack these both down. It's not going to stop, and then it's going to jump into the straight line stitching, and then it's going to jump into the stars. It has another 13 minutes to stitch out. It just finished. Oh, it turned out just beautiful. Let me hit the button so it quits blinking. Very nice. Look at those metallic stars. They're perfect. That is just gorgeous. So let's go play with that new trimmer. Okay, I need to trim these out, and like I mentioned before, if you don't have this trimmer, you would need to do this after the batting is put on. So I have my rotary mat. It just makes life a little bit easier, and I'm going to rough cut these apart. You're going to want to use the 60mm rotary cutter, not the 45,
cut these. Get rid of this. You guys won't believe this. Okay, so the instructions tell you that you need to trim each block to 1/2 inch. So this is the TrimmerByGeorge. Here it is right here. And what it has is a lip on the end of it. It's metal, okay? This is not plastic. This is metal. This is plastic and this is metal. And it's got all of the markings on it that you need for measuring. And so on this side, I'm going to measure 1/2 inch away from the outside stitching line so that I can trim it just like the directions say to. Okay. Just going to put that on there like that. And you can do all 4 sides at once or one at a time like I'm going to do. So now you want to turn the trimmer around. And what you're going to do is just lift up the fabric and keep the batting down. You want to take the trimmer and you're going to put it perpendicular to the fabric and push that metal edge up against the seam line like that. And then lay it down and cut. And look how close that got. Look at that. Can you see? Let me get right up close so you can see. I could not cut it that good myself. Every single stitch is still intact and the batting is completely trimmed away, leaving the fabric with no slices in it at all. This is awesome, and oh my goodness, what a time saver. If you're going to be making these kinds of projects, you know, these in the hoop projects are all the rage now and everybody's making them. This thing is a must, and it's so easy to use. I can't believe it. I've had a couple of my Facebook group members talk to me about this, and so I reached out to, this is from Hoop Sisters. This is who makes this. It's an embroidery company called Hoop Sisters. And I reached out to them and I said, what is this I hear about this TrimmerByGeorge? And I think I want to try it and I want to show my viewers. And they were kind enough to send me one, and oh my goodness, you guys, I am a believer. I just love this thing. I will do this all day long instead of having to trim out batting in the hoop. Look at that. It turned out perfect. Can you see the back of it? I got a little string here. Look at how close. Y'all, that's within a 16th or a 32nd of an inch. Look at that. It looks absolutely perfect. I love it. I'm going to cut up the other one. Oh, these are 2 I already did. That's number 3. So here's the other one. I need to trim this just a little bit closer on the ends here so that I'm not too tall for the mat that I'm on. I've been flipping this around instead of using my rotary mat. I got so excited. I love it. Okay. You just need to make sure that you can completely see the batting all the way down the edge. Oh man, this thing is awesome. I'll never make another one of these again without using this tool. You know, and you can tell that you're supposed to use it upside down because the numbers are right side up on this side when you have the edge over here. That's pretty cool. And I talked to them. These are made in the USA, so you don't have to wait for some slow boat from China sitting out in a harbor somewhere to get one of these. The only thing is you got to use this larger rotary cutter in order for the little knob to get up on top of that. It won't work with a 45. If you try it with a 45, you can't, the little screw gets in the way. Doesn't work. Oh, you guys, this is great. This is much better than trimming in the hoop. Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. I love it. Okay, I've only got about 400 more of those to make. Okay, so that is too cool. I have 4 of these done. I've got to make 6 more for the side borders and then the 2 end pieces. The 2 end borders. We'll have that done. So I will get this all finished, and our next video we'll be doing the regular blocks in the middle, okay? We'll talk to you soon. Go sew something. Bye.